Ithinar's Bloom by H. Jane Harrington. Chapter 16. Laid Up in Southport. There's nothing worse than too much talk, save too much silence. Master Kezias. When did you... Vaughn stammered. Lint placed a reassuring hand on Vaughn's shoulder. Don't worry, your secret's safe with me. How could I not recognize the guardian vambrace? Lint gestured toward the luminaire symbol, only partially covered by Kyr's loose sleeve. You would do well to keep that hidden, Guardian Kyr. There are those in this town who would happily seize the opportunity to ransom a prince. You don't seem surprised that I'm alive, Master Lint. There has been rumor of your existence among certain circles for several years now, Majesty. I have no desire to involve myself in the movement, but I have many friends in Havenland who are heavily involved. Perhaps I'm a coward, but I have too much to lose. I don't intend to gamble away my fortunes on a hazy future outcome. That doesn't mean I'm not friendly to you personally, but I'd rather remain neutral politically. I don't want to end up like Gavin, you see. Vaughn didn't entirely understand what Lint was talking about, but he nodded anyway. I thank you for your assistance. Is there no way I can repay you? Perhaps I'll call upon you one day when you're established in your court, Lint suggested. I'm sure it will be beneficial to have a friend in the Crown Prince. Vaughn nodded. I consider myself in your debt. Lint bowed deeply to Vaughn and then threw a glance back to Kyr. Farewell, Guardian Kyr. She waved a hand in the air half-heartedly and settled into her blankets. Yeah, thanks for the healing. No thanks for the prescription. Fair winds, Your Majesty, Lint smiled warmly. I'll pray that she does not kill you before the week is through, or vice versa. Vaughn laughed heartily and clasped arms with the healer, then watched him slip out the door. He made sure it was bolted tightly before returning to Kyr's bedside. Sounds like knowledge of your existence is not as obscure as you reckoned, Kyr commented as Vaughn took a seat. In light of that information, you'll have to be extra careful, Vaughn. Even new friends may inadvertently lead to an unknown enemy. Vaughn detected a trace of concern in her voice. I know. I never thought about your vambrace. I'm sorry. Kyr leaned back into her pillow. It's not your fault. I'm the one who should have thought about it. It's permanently affixed to my arm, anyway. It's not easy to forget about. Vaughn hung his head. Kyr's tone betrayed her feelings. She harbored resentment about the guardianship, and he couldn't blame her. But she was necessary. He could not release Kyr now. There was no way he could make it to Imperia alive without her. He knew he was using her, perhaps in the same way she had accused the Crown of using people. But some things were necessary to the safety of the world. And it wouldn't be much longer, anyway. Once he was safe in High Imperia, Vaughn would gladly release her and retain true guardians. He only hoped they would survive that long. Are you feeling any better? Vaughn asked in genuine concern. Kyr flashed a lopsided grin. I didn't realize how much I needed it till it was over. Don't tell that healer I said as much. Well, you seem in brighter spirits now, at the very least. Brighter spirits? Her grin dissolved. Don't delude yourself. I'm downright horrified at the thought of laying in bed for an entire week. What the hell am I supposed to do with myself? Perhaps I could procure us a caper's game or a deck of cards. Just think of it as a way to get to know your guarded better, Vaughn said cheerily. Sure. Getting to know Tarnavarian's baby brother. That has me giddy with glee, Kyr scoffed. The baleful words stung. Get some rest, Guardian Ithinar, Vaughn said softly, trying not to betray just how much she had wounded him. He rose and moved to the seat near the window, casting his gaze over the docks to the swelling tide of bluish-green waters beyond. After 6 days of confinement to her quilted prison, Kyr was plumb stir-crazy. Vaughn had played the dutiful, hovering mother-hen, and he seemed more like a doting slave than a prince. She jawed her annoyance, though she would not admit how revitalizing the rest had been. She felt entirely healed and ready for the journey to High Imperia. True to his word, Vaughn had purchased a deck of cards during one of his excursions for food and supplies. While she didn't flaunt the notion, Kyr found herself enjoying Vaughn's company. He had a personality as inviting and comfortable as a summer breeze. He probably attracted friends as naturally as nectar drew hummingbirds. His shoulders never sagged under the weight of his despair, and his spirit soared far above the sea of his troubles. He was a shrewd opponent in their games, picking up quickly on Kyr's strategies and surprising her with many of his own. As they played, Vaughn talked of the places he'd lived, of his work in the theater, and of his expansive knowledge of Septarian history. He was obviously an avid reader. Kyr envied him that. She'd been a bookish sort years ago, before her life had turned upside down. What about you, Kyr? Vaughn asked, displaying his winning hand. Huh? She murmured, throwing her cards in. What'd you say? I asked if you had any hobbies, Vaughn repeated. No, not anymore. I guess my sword's my hobby now. Vaughn waited, staring at her expectantly. What? I've been talking for days, but you've said so little. Can't you give me something? What's your favorite color? What was your favorite subject in lessons? What's your greatest desire? Anything, Vaughn begged. Kira was silent for a moment, contemplating her dry well of attributes. Her last 2 years had been devoid of flavor and substance. Murderous obsession had swallowed her so completely that she didn't know her own self. She could no longer relate to the young woman she had been, but she couldn't exactly grasp her current identity either. Who am I? Kira asked herself, frustrated that she could not produce a decent answer. You sound like a schoolgirl, Stick, she scoffed, pushing away raw edges of insecurity. She clasped her hands beside her cheeks and mocked a child's high-pitched voice. Where will you live when you grow up? Who will you marry? How many kids will you have? I was just trying to make friendly conversation, Vaughn grumbled. They sat in awkward hush, staring at the scattered deck on the table between Vaughn's seat and Kira's bed. The silence was deafening, and Kira finally submitted. My favorite color? I don't know. Used to be periwinkle, but red seems to suit me more these days. My favorite lesson was literature. My greatest desire? I only had one, but that's gone now. So I reckon my greatest desire is for you to survive. How's that? Vaughn accented his nod with a genuine smile. That's good enough. It wasn't so hard to give him a little feedback, Kira decided. If only she had something more to offer. Who am I? The thought echoed in her mind again. She had no true identity anymore, but then she probably wouldn't live long enough for it to matter anyway.